Alright, another draft physics video presentation. Yeah, seems to be working. So the holiday has responded in all capitals again. Recapping mountains, draft science must climb. Alright, so what I'm attempted to do is to have a rational conversation about the idea that I would compare it to the transition humanity sort of should have made between their God theories and the theory of evolution regarding the origin of mankind. And I'd say that the rational people on Earth, even though their parents wanted to tell them different or tried to tell them different, they figured out that the evidence just indicates that no, God did it isn't a good explanation. It's stupid for a lot of reasons. It's flawed even without there being a much superior answer that's highly evidenced. I would say that this is a similar circumstance where, in hindsight, I mean, what's going to be the excuses for this insipid acceptance of a insanely weakly evidence theory that creates all kinds of paradoxes, doesn't even answer any fundamental questions, and somebody presented you or gave you a much superior explanation for function or sourcing or how did it happen, and you rejected it and said, well, there's mountains that have to be climbed. You haven't climbed all the mountains that need to be climbed. Even though the God theory climbed no mountain. It didn't even do a hill. It's so bad. So we can just go down the list, right? I mean, bent space based on nothing but a man's imagination. Just kind of made it up. A magical mechanism that just happens to cause things to pull into each other. Okay, no mechanics, no sourcing, nothing. Just, okay, I see it happen, and I'm just going to tell you, yes, it happens because the invisible geometry is bent, which is the same as saying the Invisible Man did it, or angels did it, or gremlins did it, because it's a non-imaginable mechanism of magic. So, a magical answer. They notice a little redshift thing that happens in the universe, where things far away seem more redshifted than things close. They don't bother looking for any other explanation except to say, the universe is creating space. There's new space being created between each little photons. Each little piece of space is somehow expanding into double space to make everything stretch and look bigger or longer, except inside the matter. So it somehow only happens out in space, where the space stretches, but doesn't happen inside me and you. Magically, again. And then they invent another thing, dark matter. Doesn't have any evidence for it, just a complete fictitious character again, another fantasy character with fantasy magical powers, like better than Wolverine, the magic powers of the dark matter, where it can do all kinds of gravitational things, but it doesn't have to have any properties, and it doesn't have to be matter, and it doesn't have to be anything real. It can just be completely fake and imaginary and still do things. Then you got entanglement. And we have all kinds of stories that are all based on the two-slit experiment. Again, a little tiny piece of evidence. Magical, we're making multiverses, or where photons have radar, or the universe is imposing randomness by just some magical source. It just tells the photons, you're going to do something in a probabilistic random manner, and I will instruct you from the dark matter, my dark matter hive mind, how the photons, each little photon's going to move. Now, there's not a physical process causing it. No. There's a magical imposer of random, and making sure it all probabilistically comes out even. Not a physical cause. No, magical. And again, entanglement. I've been over the bad evidence for lensing, the bad evidence regarding the lens isn't even the right shape. It's just horrible theory on its own, even without somebody showing up to say, Oh, I can do a lot better than that. And I have done a lot better than that. So questions they've never answered. So first I've given you a nice physical cause for gravity, the absorption of momentum, force, a real force in the universe. I've explained how that same force can explain magnetism merely by polarizing it, which they don't even explain polarization, right? We didn't even get into that one, but and then they say something silly like there's no magnetic monopoles, when they know that the reason why the magnet has a red end and a black end is because of electrons and protons, because the atoms have magnetic moments all pointing the same direction, and those are all caused by electrons and protons, and yet they won't say electrons and protons are magnetic monopoles. I mean, it's just rubbish. And so I'm just trying to get your reasoning here. And then he does, like I said, he just goes, instead of conceding, okay, that, all right, this battle wouldn't last too long if it was on a fair field. It'd be over already, this war. A decisive victory, because theirs is garbage. Instead of saying something like that, conceding that this is just the status quo, has huge advantage, this is just incumbency, okay, huge taking advantage by the incumbent, and to close the door to any kind of competition. And instead of conceding that point, he just doubles down on bullshit, and claims I'm the one who hasn't explained anything, when no, they're the ones that haven't explained anything. I'm the one explaining every single thing. And then he's going to nitpick me. And it's exactly what I said before. So again, I mean, I'd almost wish to ask you, just if you could just stretch your imagination for just a moment and imagine that I'm actually right. I know I'll kill you. And then just explain to me, just explain how you would explain why you resisted. Why you were so belligerent in your resistance. When, like I said, on paper, this battle shouldn't even be fought. It's so lopsided and unfair. I mean, they have explained nothing. Nothing. They don't know what polarization is, yet they claim, okay, that this magical polarization function, they can use it, in their entanglement experiments. They don't even know what it is, yet they can find entangled particles with it. And you trust all of that crap. I'm just, it's just hard to take you seriously as anything like a fair cop. It just does. I mean, right on the subject of magnetism alone, the fact that I have explained magnetism alone is the game over kind of. That is such a bomb of filling in a huge gap that in 400 years their physics hasn't been able to come anywhere near a rational explanation. Well, anyway, there's nothing you can do. See, there's just no fair conversation here. I can bring up lots of stuff. I'll get no replies to all their vacuous nonsense answers. And again, they'll just cherry pick and say, oh yeah, the only holes are the ones on my side. No, there's no holes on their side, when it's just covered in them. All the things that don't match in the wave theory of light. Like the single slit.
I'm live again. So, before I recap the mountain hills that DraftScience must assail to replace orthodox science, let's just recap that.
Again, you can't fail to replace it, in the sense that I could just make up a bunch of superheroes. I could just make up the Incredible Hulk, Magic Man, Super Long Finger Man, any kind of thing, and have a better explanation than their nothing. They provide nothing as an explanation.
That DraftScience has fairly well demonstrated that it's possible to have a particle theory of gravity, a particle theory of polarization, of magnetic type, attractive and repulsive.
Okay. So aren't you just conceding the argument then? a perfectly simple and rational, right? Dead simple, and it works, and it's physical, and there's absolutely no need for multi-dimensions or multiverses or magical expando space or moments when the universe a bazillion size bigger by some boing process. It doesn't require any of that junk. Decisive victory from my side.
Forces that are born not of pure pulls, because as he correctly points out, any notion of pulling is philosophically complex and should be resisted.
Well, yeah, why don't we say elementally impossible? It can't be an elemental function unless you're just going to say God did it, because it becomes some sort of magical tractor beam. Oh, I'll shoot something at it and it will come towards me. Yeah, sure it will.
But to claim that in those two facets that you have unified physics from those mechanics, I think is a stretch too far.
Oh, whatever. Again, how silly can we get? I mean, it's a clear unification. When you unify gravity and magnetism and electricity, that's the definition of a unification theory. I mean, I don't want to have to take you all the way back to like first grade of this subject, but that's exactly what Einstein was after. That's exactly what anybody who thinks of unification would be thinking. You have to combine quantum mechanics and bent space bullshit. Obviously, you don't have to do the relativity parts because, frankly, those are based on wrong assumptions that somehow some other component besides the velocity increasing component of gravity is the part that's actually causing time dilation.
At this point, orthodox science doesn't suffer the problem that non-orthodox science suffers in trying to give a physical explanation for things.
Yes, it doesn't suffer the need to be rational, right, because it doesn't use rational parts. So that should be a strike against it, not a strike against the opposition. So you even get that backwards. The very fact that it's so lame that they can't come up with a single physical mechanism to describe anything, it shouldn't be something you credit them with. Oh, good strategy. Yeah, well played. No, that's badly played. Especially in the context of that the human brain has been frickin' suffocated under religion for thousands of years.
Because I think it's fairly clear they don't have a mechanical explanation when you get right down to it. Thus, to unify.
So again, just this conversation is just so frickin' rabbit hole bullshit. I'm going to put in capital letters. Again, how I'm failing, yet he's pointing out exactly how vacuous what they have is. It's so empty. So little is in their box. And I'm giving you one that just does it all. It cooks anything. It works. I got, this is an oven that cooks. Theirs is one that pretends, an easy bake, little kid oven.
Two elements of physics is to show mathematical derivations from.
Alright, so we've already been over this subject 7,000 times. Is no one going to respond to my overt accusation that the math is describing effects? I'm not challenging effects. So how do you want me to change the math to suit you? How do I change the effects exactly? I mean, didn't I point out, isn't it clear to anybody who does a little bit of thinking? The math for jamming is exactly the same as the wave equation. It's exactly the same math. Exactly the same. So this is just such bogus. It's just so bogus. So again, when I'm proven right, if you are in hindsight, in the future, and you have to explain Well, why'd you keep doing that lame crap of saying he had to change the effects when he was describing causes? Why do causes need mathematics? I mean, the causes have to fit the effect. It's automatically going to fit the mathematics because the causes have to suit the effects. If they don't match the effects, then the causes have to get thrown out. So why does he have to change the math? I have to change how the universe works before I'm allowed to have a theory about how it works. Is that how it works? Just so bogus.
From another principle, mathematical principle. Now, it's very powerful when you demonstrate such mathematical.
Well, again, I could suit you. What you want me to give you a mathematical theory, where instead of blaming redshift on the velocity of the emitter, I merely state there's a certain mass of hydrogen gas in the universe in atom form. The atoms have a certain momentum. The momentum is likely to be opposing to the travel of the light particles, so they'll hit more little atoms moving towards them than away from them. So clearly there would be an imposition of a certain amount of shift over time, and I'll come up with some little k value, or more precisely, right, it has to be named after the right guy, who didn't even believe in that crap anyway, which is the irony. So I'll give you a little constant that will equate to the amount of redshift that's going to be created in photons as they are transmitted through hydrogen atoms over their whole path from distant places to us, and it'll come up exactly the same, and I'll just be able to guess at it. I can't give you any exact figures, right? I mean, I can't go weigh the entire universe, find out exactly how much gas is in it and all this kind of crap. But I mean, theoretically, you can see how that's going to match the math the same way, right? I'll just come up with a constant, and you just apply the constant to the distance, and you can figure out how much shift there's going to be. So what's so complicated? Oh, that's right, nothing.
Unifications, in that you can be rest assured that the phenomena that these two mathematical equations represented or gave measurement possibilities to, you can be sure that the supervening unified mathematical structure similarly gives the same predictions.
Yeah, well, I've already pointed out what the differences are going to be in Maxwell's equation. So, yeah, I'm not a mathematician, so you're telling me, okay, I'm saying it's all going to come out the same anyway. You can do the equation the right way, you can do it the wrong way. I've basically said that Maxwell bifurcated, okay, and you can see it in the equations in the sense that they have two constants that add up to the speed of light, technically. And both of those constants were just made up, the permutivity of space and the permeability of space. You know, two nothing constants, never measured constants. So, you know, I could just clearly point out that, yeah, you could just re-engineer this math, because all those constants and you know, just changing the B field and the E field, changing one rule about whether it's r cubed or r squared, is about the only difference between analyzing one field and analyzing the other. Analyzing a magnetic field isn't any different than analyzing an electric field, except that you change a couple of constants, and that's it. There's nothing incredibly magical about any of that crap, and it's nothing incredibly unnecessary. So I would argue again, it's going to be fairly easy for somebody well versed in mathematical manipulation, if I inform them the two forces are the same, the B field and the E field made out of the same stuff, that they could just come up with a new set of rules, so you don't make B and E mistakes anymore, and you just recognize that, oh yes, well, the B field is a dipole field, so you have to account for a plus and a minus effect, and the you know, the E field is always either all minus or all plus, you know, for the elements themselves. There's no dipoles in the E equations. You don't think that's doable, but you're expecting me to do it all. Oh, I see again this double standard.
Because that's the nature of the game they play. And so it isn't.
We're not talking about anybody's game being played. We're talking about you. So you're saying you are You're mountains away from seeing this. Okay, it's mountains of distance and height and crap that has to be accomplished. It's just so far, far, far distant from anything reasonable. So I'm just trying to find out, well, what do you mean? What exactly is your problem? All right, you're supposed to be a rational person, and you're telling me, oh, bent space makes much more sense than absorbed momentum, and redshift being expanding space. It makes so much more sense than, oh yeah, light over distance has to travel through some stuff to get here. I mean, I can go through the whole list. And you're just saying, no, you're choosing the bullshit. And then using this bullshit, I mean, again, it's just an accusation you're making. Oh, that it's so far from a theory. No, it isn't really that far. And it contains so much more than theirs has right now. With just one person working on it for 7 years, it's got more substance than theirs has over hundreds of years with millions of people working on it. I mean, I'm supposed to take you seriously with your capital letters. Why do you think they're right? Why? Why do you trust them? Why do you believe it? It's vacuous mush.
It's as big an issue.
And don't tell me you don't believe anything. You must believe in something. So what the fuck do you believe? What is your fantasy theory then? What kind of crazy nonsense do you think how the universe works? If I forced you under threat of torture to actually admit what you think, do you really think bent space is a better answer than a particle force? Do you really think that their answer for magnetism is better than my answer? Oh, you're just so full of shit.
In terms of explaining all phenomena when the guy comes up with a new theory, because to the extent it works is the extent it can be assured to explain the other phenomena because of its mathematical nature.
Oh, so again, if the idea is that somebody's going to replace 2 + 2 = 4, then this is over. There's no conversation. Bent space isn't a mathematical formula. It's made of a bunch of mathematics. Even Newton's math is in it. No one's going to come up with new math. So this is just stupid. I mean, math is a description of effects. So again, he's saying if you have a theory of cause, you have to change the effects. That's the only way we can accept a new theory of cause is you have to change the effects. God, I mean, you just can't. Will you respond to that direct accusation? That's what you're basically saying. You're saying any new theory of cause must change the effects and show me new mathematics for new effects. Isn't that what you're saying? Or else show me the damn equation that defines causes. Because the wave equation doesn't do causes. It does an angle theta, and then you get to make up the cause to make the angle. But that's all there is. And Maxwell's equations don't have any causes in them either. They just have effects. You're just amazing. Bullshit. This bullshit.
Now, building from the bottom up, an entirely new system requires explaining all the phenomena.
Right. New in the sense that, yes, it's exactly 368 years old. In the sense that the first guy who came up with it, that they threw in the crapper, people like you threw in the crapper for bullshit nitpicky reasons, even though he had a theory that actually answered the question better than any other theory anybody had. It answered the question better than any other theory at the time. They threw it in the crapper because they just nitpicked it into the toilet. They forced the guy to be able to see what he can't see. They didn't work to say, well, how do we make this work? No, they said, how do we throw this out? And that's all they did, like the typical religious kooks, just find an excuse to deny all the science. Oh, we caught one of those scientists putting the fake head on a dinosaur, therefore the entire theory can be thrown out. I mean, just amazing bullshit.
Phenomena of all the equations that have ever existed or do exist quite separately. Now, it would be good if
So again, it's just this obsession with this notion that somehow the observed evidence over time is what's being challenged. No, the interpretation of the evidence is being challenged.
the approaches do condense in the same mathematical sense or way in which that if you form a classification of problems.
Yes, F equals MA. Yes, you're not going to rewrite that into something else, okay? As a general statement, it's going to be true forever. So again, but does that equation tell you what's causing the force? Does it tell you what the force is made out of? Does it explain anything? No. It explains an effect.
You in solving the general class, you can ensure you fairly well covered all the bases in that class, rather than every phenomenon in the.
Okay, so again, this is in the context where I've made pretty extensive videos. I went through explaining the whole inertia, velocity, acceleration distinctions. I finally got him to concede this mechanism could account for the conservation of momentum, and he's just going back to it like a Pyrrho. Like a Pyrrho, it's like he never even made those concessions. He has no understanding that it works. It doesn't need to be fixed. It's not broken. It works.
Nitpicky sense. I don't know. Kids walk to school past my window, and so I just had the random thought of, you could just say, so why did the child trip up over a stone? I mean, it's not all phenomena. You can classify phenomena, and I think somebody seeking to reinvent, replace orthodox science has to go through, to some extent, a classification, and if you want to do it in video form, you have to provide.
So again, this is just as simple as somebody saying, "Look, I got a better explanation for how humans got here, and here's the indirect and direct evidence of that. Here's a model. I'll draw you a picture of the model that works. It'll explain how the magnet functions, explains how gravity functions, explain what charges, explains what's going through the wires, explains why the wires are turning into a magnet." Yeah, and they're just going, "And God so loved the world that he gave it randomness and bent space." I mean, this is pathetic.
Separate playlists for each of the phenomena of interest that you turn to, because it's
I already have done this, so I mean there already are subject videos. There's a playlist, subjects, blah 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 blah. But whatever, this doesn't matter. You're impervious to the reasoning, so there's no point. You're just impervious to reasoning.
And DraftScience has done a lot of improvement on organising this channel going forward in this sense, but I'd say two further categories at least would be the phenomena, or well, they wouldn't be a playlist, each individual phenomena, both from his perspective and debunking the orthodox perspective.
I mean, this is this insane nitpicking again, because that's exactly what I've done. Who cares? No one points. I point out how the interferometer has no theoretical grounding. There's just no theory. Nobody has a theory of how it works. I explained how the theory of quantum mechanics, of this idea that these photons are somehow, entangled, or that they're somehow going to do this spooky interaction crap, doesn't make much sense, because there's this huge inconsistency where individual free photons somehow interact, where we can't find any physical evidence of that in the real world, or a single photon splits in two and interacts with itself. Well, those are two pretty much fundamentally different actions. How can they be called the same thing? They're fundamentally different properties. So shouldn't they have an explanation for how photons are fooling us when they're not interacting when they should be? I mean, again, how come we can't just shoot the two laser beams into each other and create all kinds of fireworks?
perspective. And I don't think draft science is rigorous enough in debunking orthodox science, insofar as there's too much engagement with the...
I just can't even imagine. I just can't imagine what his excuse is here. I can't. I mean, what is there to debunk but point out how it's vacuous? It's an empty bucket. There's nothing growing there. How do I critique their dead flower? It's dead. There's no flower. There's no plant. There's a bucket of dirt. How can I fail at that critique? They have no explanation. That's the critique.
Lay level of thought. I think it should only take the form of dealing with scientific papers.
So again, more just babble. I mean, scientific papers that are never written, okay? These subjects have never had scientific papers. There's no scientific paper explaining how the interferometer works, how a beam splitter works. There's no scientific paper. They made it up. There's no scientific paper explaining how the space expanded. Where's that scientific paper? Again, all there's a paper on is the effect. Well, we're agreeing on the effect. Yeah, the redshift is real. I'm not disputing the redshift. I'm disputing that every speck in space expands, okay, and is constantly expanding and moving everything apart, even though so nothing has any real velocity. It just has velocity created by fake extra black space. I'm saying the cause is nonsense. The cause, there's no paper explaining why the cause is real. Dopey.
And actual claims and actual technical setups. It would be good. The trouble is, it is very difficult. Somebody like...
okay, they have to prove nothing. I have to prove everything. That's all he's saying. Complete double standard. They prove nothing. I have to prove everything. That's all. Religious kook.
Potassium or somebody seems to get to, through credibility and the size of his channel and such, gain access to really good sources who can, and access going into universities and people with labs.
Oh yeah, right. And we've seen the kind of crap garbage experiments he's done with that technology. His single photon experiment was an absolute steaming pile of shit. His results, the noise level was 50% of the signal. I mean, get frickin' real.
To do things that he might not be able to readily do himself. That would be an ideal position or something to try to achieve or work upon in visiting these places. To ask. Draft science is very good.
Yeah, right. That's right. Draft science is very good at asking questions and getting absolutely dead cricket silence from you bastards. That's what I'm very good. I'm very good at asking questions that you never answer. Ever, 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 ever. I mean, this is just so... Again, the question to you is directly to you. You believe something, okay? You think bent space is a better theory than the particle model I gave you, where you have a cosmic background radiation style force that's absorbed by bodies. By absorbing the momentum, they move towards each other because they actually possess the momentum. You think that explanation is junk, mountains away from being the truth, and you think this spent space shit has some real credibility for some reason. I'm trying to figure out why. Why do you see it that way? Because I can't, for the life of me, understand how anybody rational or reasonable or fair-minded could possibly see the two explanations in the light that you're seeing them.
At scrutinizing details and seeing details in experiments were, and I must admit, people have complained.
Yes, I'm not even doing a great job. That's the part that's so disgusting here. Hundreds of years of millions of scientists working on this stuff, and none of them, it occurred to any of them to ask a few questions about how this device works. They've been talking about this stupid Michelson-Morley thing for 200 frickin' years. 200 frickin' years. Well, whatever it is, 150. And nobody thought to wonder, well, how does that silvering thing work? I mean, doesn't the light reflect off the glass layer first anyway? So if it's 50-50, that can't be 50-50 anymore, so it has to be less than 50-50 right off the bat. And then doesn't the glass make a bunch of these little holes that are supposed to make light go all funny? I mean, nobody else could ask that question in 150 years of smart people using this experiment to say, there's no ether, they're rubbing it in people's faces, there's no ether, here's our proof. And theoretically, they haven't explained how the device they proved the non-existence of the ether with, they can't even theoretically explain to you how it works. Yet they made proof out of it? They made proof out of evidence where they can't even explain how the experiment works? Come on.
Complacent. I've been complacent. For example, the famous two-slit experiment, which is not the two-slit, it's called the which way two-slit experiment, is not undertaken as it's analogized. Yeah? You'll not find it done as in the quantum explanations are given. And I think he has a good skepticism and a good eye for when to be skeptical. For example, in like something like the quantum eraser, yeah, he raises a point, and I think it's a valid point. Is can they really do that? Yeah, track and same with all these entangled. Can they really track a so-called split or entangled pair? Now, if they claim that they've broken a Bell statistical model, then statistics deals with aggregates, and you could understand that they may.
Yeah, exactly, and they concede, so they know they're working with aggregates. But the whole question is do they have any? Has anybody ever tested the theory in the experiment? That is, the spinning mirror. Is that creating 50-50? All right, the polarizing film, I've already been over that. Did they ever prove that 50% of the energy goes through one film and exactly 50%? Not 49.8 or 49.9? That it's perfectly 50-50? Did they ever prove that somewhere? I mean, again, you can go over all these details where they just don't care about the details, okay? They're just engineering results. They are just trying to get an experiment to equal what they want to do. Just like the radar experiment, putting the sound tone on it instead of actually measuring the energy coming off the antenna, okay? And what, I'm supposed to believe they don't know what modulation is, and they don't know that when you modulate a signal, you potentially create a 4 times increase in its amplitude when the two signals constructively interfere? They don't know that? I'm just saying, I've gone over a list of things that should be answered before they claim proof. Again, the LIGO experiment, they never did any test that involved detecting gravity. They have a mirror, they can put a big lead ball above it, they can do something to see how much gravity affects it. Did they do a single test to see if gravity moves their mirror? Not one.
Not be so concerned about tracking individual particles, just to count some huge number in aggregates and say, ha, it's broke. That kind of statistic. Clearly we have the quantum statistic in play.
Right, but and again, it's all again these numbers they give you an error number. They just make this up, you know. They're making up their own margin of error. They get to make up their own numbers essentially. All right, because they don't know what the real error rate is. All right, and again, where did they prove that they always use polarizing films, right? 99% of those experiments are using polarized light. Did they ever fully test what polarizers do to light? Again, I pointed out how the filters are obviously changing the polarization. That's why when you put the third filter in, okay, you make more light come out, is because the filter has to be changing the photons. It's the only way it could work. So here they're using something as a detecting a device that's supposed to be using as a filter that's supposed to be benign. Again, another beam splitter kind of thing. Something that's supposed to not be messing with the experiment. And here it is, fundamental knowledge. Just, you know, a high school kid could understand how there's real doubt whether polarizing films don't interfere with photons. It seems quite clear that they do interfere. They change them.
But other times, I think he goes too far with his skepticism, and is a bit little reluctant to hear objections to when he pushes it too far.
Again, so it's more garbage. I have to hear them. Nothing can stop you from making a video explaining how I went too far. I don't think you can do that and make a rational argument, frankly. So go ahead and try. I'm saying go ahead and try. Why don't you be a little bit more specific for a change? You just keep making these general accusations, general crap about some mountain I have to climb, some subject I haven't dealt with when I have. You know, I mean, this is just you're just such a fucking piece of shit as a fucking human being. I'm sorry. What else can I draw here? How are you different than a fucking Islamic mullah? Besides the fact that, yeah, you don't have the power to have my head cut off. But besides that, how are you more fair cop than one of those kooks?
But I'll not get into that.
Chicken.
So that's one problem, is this, the orthodoxy has a natural height, because each person is standing on the shoulders of another person, then it's a foregone conclusion that what they show is within a reasonable amount of rigor, or at least understand.
No, it's just Mommy Lewin told me so. It's Mommy Faraday told. Look at Lewin. He's so up Faraday's ass, you know. Faraday is always right. Blah, 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 all that crap. What the fuck is that? It's hero worship. The same thing as God or Jeebus worship.
Stood in Orthodox science to be in conformity with that which has gone before it. Non-Orthodox science doesn't have that luxury. That's a huge mountain. And recent video by Electro Booth.
Yeah, you ought to make a good separation between the mountains that shouldn't exist, the unfair mountains, and the legitimate mountains. You just say the word mountain. You know, that's more of your horse shit. Instead of pointing out how, well, there should be a fair conversation between dissident science and actual science. There should be some physicist willing to spend the time to actually have the conversation and take the risk that they might be shown up. But we see how they behave on message boards. We see what they do. We see it. They stop the conversation. As soon as they start losing, they just stop it.
Reminded me, and I brought it, I have mentioned it before, but it seemed to have slipped attention. But in Electro Boom's recent video, he mentions quantum locking. Now, quantum locking is of a different character to regular attraction and repulsion. So far, DraftScience has given analysis for a phenomena of attracting, gravity, phenomena of electric force or magnetic force attraction, and electric/magnetic force repulsion. But quantum locking, as he explained.
Okay, so I'm supposed to know what quantum locking is, okay? And this wasn't an Electric Boom video because I've seen his, so I don't know who you're talking about. But quantum locking, so you're saying that this isn't an effect that he gave a name to. So like every other experiment where they call something something it isn't, like the positronic ray medical device where there's no real positronics, no positrons go from the machine to the person or from the person to the machine. No, the positrons are inside the person, that kind of bullshit. So you don't think it's not possible that this quantum locking thing could just be another thing where, no, there could just be a simple explanation that all they're really talking about is, you know, magnetic moments and blah, blah, blah. I mean, what a pile of crap. I never even heard the word quantum locking. Oh, you think it's a real thing, do you? You think it's really important, this quantum locking crap?
In his video about the implications of the mechanics of the system, the quantum mechanics of the system, requiring a zero in the system means it neither, once you place it there, it neither repulses.
So this is almost like the Kashmir effect, right? I mean, where you're taking a happening, an event. Two plates crash into each other. When you're two plates that are neutral and they put them very, very close to each other, they'll smash together. And they do it by logic, just because they're atoms on the surfaces. The atoms are going to turn opposite poles facing, so obviously they're going to crash into each other for that very reason. A simple explanation, and then they turn into quantum vacuum bullshit. I mean, this is another example, the same bullshit. Again, this doesn't have a... Look, they can't explain how a polarization works. They can't explain how a magnet works. They can't give you any physical thing for gravity. They can't, you know, they see a little bit of redshift and they start creating preposterous expansion theories. And we haven't even got into the multiverse nonsense, because a slit creates the simplest pattern in the universe, on and off. You have to make multiverses now. So instead of focusing on their preposterous nonsense, their history of making up crap like dark matter, he's going to sit there and say, "Oh, Gary, you got to deal with this quantum locking crap." No, I don't think it's a real thing at all. They can't do the fundamental things. How can they do this little complex thing? They can't even explain how the magnet works. And that they're going to explain something called the quantum lock. Are you kidding?
Or attracts. I mean, your standard maglev kind of electric floating train theory is the idea that a force can be made to repel and it floats, you know, and the forces are in equilibrium and it raises.
Oh, so okay, so now he's talking about the superconductor. All right, and the fact that there would be an absolute, so this is just the obvious kind of argument, that there's an absolute amount of magnetism that you could possibly create in a substance. They're all dipoles. You can create a certain amount of polar configuration. You have a certain amount of atoms in the material. You can align them all the right way, and you'll get a certain amount of energy out of that. And that somehow to him is a big mystery that needs to be explained, that how can it be just one amount? Well, if all the atoms are engaged, then how can it be variable? Well, anyway, so now I see what Electric Boom had a little tiny bit in there about superconductors. But again, now we're talking about what's the nature of resistance. I mean, in the same video, he showed the tube with the magnet. And what did he do? So he said, okay, one piece of foil doesn't do the trick. And what did he say? He said, well, because it has too high a resistance. Well, one piece of foil doesn't have very high resistance, right? I mean, it's not a real problem resistance-wise. It's a very good conductor. So it's really just about the density. So then we did the whole pile of aluminum, the whole tube of aluminum foil. It worked. Why? Because it's more atoms. So I've already partially explained this, and he doesn't even get it. That I already partially explained this.
So the force is in equilibrium. Quantum locking is not like that at all. You can, if you place the item here, it stays there. If you place it there, it stays there. It's not an equilibrium of repulsions or well, yeah.
Well, it is an equilibrium, so again, don't say it the wrong way. It clearly is an equilibrium. And again, okay, I can't do this in this video, explain the phenomenon to you, but I know what you're talking about. But that has to do with special materials, so let's understand it's not just any magnets will do. These are special materials. And so it's going to have something to do with their chemistry. So I would argue it probably has to do with the fact that there's two levels, you know, the orbitals of the electrons, right? So, I mean, there's layers to the electrons, and all you're seeing is a reveal of those layers of force. So at one distance, you can feel the effect of the other layer of electrons, and another distance, you're far enough away that you only feel the effect of the one layer. So you have one layer, then you have the two combined, and maybe you could combine 3 layers, but there'll be specific points. But you won't be able to put it anywhere. It'll still be probably slots. You can go high, medium, low. You probably can't go anywhere. But you might be able to, because it's, see again, it's inductive. So you're getting back the reflection, you're reflecting what the circumstances of the thing you're moving. So there might be something like that. So again, I'm just saying, so you want me to do that subject. So instead of, they haven't explained what a magnet is. And now we're off on a, what happens when supercooled materials do X, Y, Z. And so, yes, I haven't spent too much time analyzing that experiment. But do you think I'm not going to be able to find an explanation in the simple mechanics? I think I will.
Yeah, repulsions, repulsive forces, and that would seem to be of a different.
So again, this is just more crap where it's just this. You explain one thing, he'll just dodge you off to another thing that hasn't been explained yet. So explain every single phenomenon ever seen in science. So if a volcano shoots out a diamond someday, then he'll say, go explain the volcano diamond.
Completely different character that as yet has not been explored by DraftScience, and that would be
yeah, it's a pretty obscure subject, frankly. Oh yeah, I should have explored that. I shouldn't have explained magnetism, gravity, electricity, the Lenz law. No, right hand rule. No, I shouldn't bother with those. I should go all the way over to this weird circumstance again, the experiment that isn't the common experiment. All right, that is going to require a little bit of analysis about what exactly is happening to the material under these bizarre conditions. Oh, you are so insufferable.
A particular mountain to climb.
Right, and their quantum explanation is what anyway? Do they have one? Probably not. So, again, I have to come up with an explanation to overcome their really great explanation. No, they don't have a really great explanation for it. So again, just such a huge dodge. Oh, you're just such a fucking piece of shit.
I forgot the title of that last video Electro Boom did. But interestingly, actually, I was just continuing. Electro Boom explains how microwaves work in orthodox science. And some of the experiments that I've had mind to do to demonstrate the orthodox claim of wave-like behavior in that video about how microwaves work, Electro Boom makes compelling evidence of confirmation of the idea of this wave nature from the orthodox point of view, because of the cold spots in a microwave fitting the theory of the wavelength. See, if light was particles at a frequency, you could envisage cold spots for sure of such a system, but it wouldn't predict always that the distance between cold spots be related to that.
Why not? So again, the wave meaning what? So do you think those photons, the microwaves, are spreading waves? Is that what your argument's going to be? That somehow these photons are spreading photons? when every other description of them is this two magnetic and electric component being in a confined amount of space, that they don't spread, that they don't dissipate, they don't lose their energy. So what are you going to make? Some kind of dopey argument? I mean, again, the geometry, I'm sure, isn't going to be that complicated, and clearly, as I pointed out, resonance is really important. So yes, how you reflect, reflections are, in a sense, going to be a change in phase can take place when there's a reflection. And so you can have all kinds of resonant problems depending on what the shape of the box is. And so who would argue any of that? But where have you demonstrated that there's some, oh yeah, but this proves that it couldn't be bits at a distance because somehow they're not going to work the same way? Of course, yes, they are. This is just horse shit.
That periodicity, because it would be kind of random where a particular place got missed.
Yeah, there's no random. I mean, the theory of the radio wave transmission, as I've pointed out before, it's not like photons where, you know, one atom shoots the long ray. I mean, microwaves are being created synthetically. Okay, so that means we perturbate them. We tell them to jiggle at a certain time. And so the entire antenna shoots a whole bunch of individual photons, and then it doesn't do anything. And then it shoots a whole bunch of individual photons. So they're not coming out in straight rays anymore. I mean, in effect, it's going to be ray-like. I mean, they're all going to follow behind each other to some extent. But it's not like your perfect radiant atom that's creating the individual, like an individual light photon isn't a composite. It isn't made out of a bit that could be coming from this atom and a bit that could be coming from this atom. Okay, it's a bit coming from one electron, presumably, one location. And the microwaves are being produced by all the atoms at once, and so it's just a big blob of stuff, and then a big blob of stuff, of little bits of heat energy, of momentum
in the bouncing around of these particles.
Again, the geometry would look just like balloon expansion. It would look like a wave. I mean, in the sense, if you had a round antenna, it's going to radiate in exactly that shape. So whatever the antenna's shape is, it's going to radiate proportionally in all directions from that location. Again, just like if it was a wave. You could draw it like it was a wave, but it's not a wave. It's just a bunch of stuff. It's a field of them. I could have waves of soldiers 20 feet behind each other. They're not in rays. They're not perfectly lined up with each other in rays or something. No, it's just a whole bunch of soldiers. Then 20 feet behind them, there's a whole bunch of soldiers. And 20 feet behind them, a bunch of soldiers. And they're all moving in generally straight lines.
So the mountain has yet also not climbed in the theoretical sense because of, again, it's difficult to obtain the information, granted, but orthodox science has this measurable property of spin.
Oh, so another complete dodge. This measurable property of spin. Measurable in what form? By another experiment, they have no clue what it's doing. And as I already pointed out, I already gave you an explanation for the Stern-Gerlach experiment in the sense of it's all explainable based on the fact that the uneven field is causing the electron to move its locations because it's the atom, because the atom is paramagnetic. That is, Lenz's law is happening to the individual atom. And as it moves in one direction, it creates a repulsive force, has to be pushed in the other direction. It goes too far, makes more repulsive force, moves in the other direction. And it's obviously moving more in one direction than it moves in the other direction at a different speed because of the uneven fields. Oh, you're so full of shit.
Which is different, again, to the phenomena as yet discussed. It's kind of a binary thing, and yet in some senses infinitely pointable. Stern-Gerlach experiment. You know, just because you don't have access to seeing the experiment, such you turn your critical eye to it, doesn't stop you making a prediction about these circumstances.
Yeah, and I did. Again, I just pointed out how, look, all you have is an effect, and you can explain the effect. I came up with one explanation that to me is perfectly reasonable. I mean, first you have to understand, why are they using silver atoms? What's so special about silver? Oh, well, it's a really good conductor, like I think the best in the universe, which means that it's going to be affected by Lenz's law, which means it's going to create an opposite, a same magnetic field, in the sense it's going to become a mirror to whatever field is affecting it. So if it starts to move towards the positive end of the magnet, it's going to be created positive and then for repel, and then if it moves down towards the negative end, it's going to become negative and then repel. That's exactly what it's going to do, is herky-jerky in an uneven field. Now if you put it in a nice even field, then it'll go nice and straight, because the pressure will be constant and there won't be unevennesses in its movement, because there won't be uneven ways to move into the field. Why is Stern-Gerlach created this way? Why is there this V, this little point of a magnet? So a little tiny field at one end and a big giant bowl, right, square bowl at the bottom, which is creating a very uneven field, especially at these angles. So these sideways angles have very uneven fields. So it's probably going like this. You know, the pattern up and down is probably going left, right.
And this is another problem, is now you're stacking up. I remember 4 years ago, perhaps, some people would, maybe even I said it, that it seemed that you weren't making predictions, but you pointed out that you were making predictions, but there was really seemingly difficult for anybody without, like,
again, these stupid prediction things, totally irrelevant. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to make predictions where they're obviously wrong, and I think there's obviously no evidence of gravitational lensing. That was just nonsense Einstein made up. So there's obvious ones that are just easy to predict because they don't fit. Yeah, I think even conventional physics has a hard time explaining why photons would be twice as affected by gravity than any other particle in the universe. That does sound kind of contrived and silly. The fastest thing in the universe is affected the most. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. It has no mass and yet it's affected by gravity. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even fit with their own stupid retarded theory. So that's an easy prediction to make. But again, the whole point is not to change the effects. I'm not changing effects. I'm changing the causes, damn it. All right, just like evolution, okay? The theory of evolution doesn't mean that human beings become a different animal. It doesn't mean that all the animals change we have to take their organs out and replace them with new organs, and they now have to have wheels inside of them and gears or something. No, evolution says everything stays exactly the same as effects. It's just giving you a better cause than God done it. Damn it.
Trillions of dollars funding to make these space experiments. But now we've arrived at a position where the relatively trivial confirmation or falsifiable claims about DraftScience as it stands now. For example, the radar jamming experiment, doubling the frequency. There was another consequence. But yes, this spin one would be a prediction you could make if you turned your analysis to it.
Well, again, turn my analysis to an experiment where they claim they did it with an electron. I've never seen the experiment, not a diagram of it. I can't find a paper on it. So, well, I did find a paper, but it was so convoluted I couldn't even tell whether they actually shot electrons through it or not. They were basically talking about what the electrons on the surface of the atoms were doing, I think. So they tested the electrons by leaving the electrons still attached to atoms. So if that makes sense to you, fine. If that's a valid way to do experiments, I can do an experiment on an electron by just, hey, this is an electron experiment because there's electrons here. So whatever this whole thing does, I can say the electrons did that. I mean, it was that bad. But I'm just saying, what can you do? Again, you're telling me I have to make a Stern-Gerlach device and then have to figure out how to shoot silver atoms at some sort of rational way. Again, they can't steer the damn thing, so they have to make a hole to shoot them through. I mean, there's all kinds of flaws in this experiment, you know.
What are your predictions about this spin experiment? It seems gravitational waves. Now, obviously, that's not an accessible experiment, but I find sometimes.
Well, it's accessible theoretically, and again, what's their theory? See, I keep asking you, why don't you just explain to me, draw me a picture of their theory. Show me their theory of the travel of the photon. How does the photon go from start to finish? You show me their theory, please. Where does the photon interfere? Where does does a single photon go both ways, or does the wave function go both ways? Which way is it? They don't even have a theory, damn it.
Where you don't have ready access, it seems too easy to be dismissive of the claims. You know, like, oh, that never happened, that doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Well, what you can be dismissive of is the fact that they have no published evidence that their device can do anything. They never tested it doing anything significant. They don't even show us how good it is at detecting earthquakes. They show us nothing.
I understand that for gravitational lensing, that in your theory a force doesn't interact with a force, as you put it, you know, so therefore any apparent images that you attribute to gravitational lensing, or orthodox science does, you say is no, it's an actual phenomenon. It's not.
All I'm saying is that every single thing we know that travels the speed of light, no matter how we mix those forces together, we shoot magnetism at electricity, at photons, at whatever, all that stuff, we can't make one of them bend the other one unless we use a medium. So unless we are shooting the light through oil and then we manipulate the oil, then we have some hope of changing the polarization of the light. But, you know, outside of using some material catalyst, there's no way to make a force interfere with a force. So I'm just saying, yes, the photon gravity example is the only one that exists in all the universe of known knowledge of experiments where a force interacts with a force. And it's doing it in this circumstance where you have all this doubtful information. The horrible Eddington experiment, as it's just a garbage, rubbish piece of work. And all these cosmic lensing images that are so vague, okay, they could be described as almost anything, and they don't fit any of the rational mathematical consistency. There is no spherical symmetry. They're sloppy, and they're in places they shouldn't be, and they're not in places where they should be, and you just keep ignoring those facts. Those are profound credibility issues for the quality of the evidence. Again, you won't say this word. Well, that is weak evidence. That is not sufficient evidence for conclusion. That is weak evidence.
Not the bending of the thing. And, well, there are, so it says, that, you know, they've analysed the character of the light to say that it's not really, you know, these two separate phenomena, these blood smears of light, they've analysed them, and they're happy in their analysis that it's so much the same light, yeah, it's the same characteristics, so it's the same light taking a different path around a dense object.
Yeah, they say lots of things. They even say in one example where the light is time dilated, and you're seeing the light that's 500 years old over one side, and you know, it's so nonsensical rubbish. It took a much longer path, and so this 500-year-old light is in the same image with light from the source. I mean, just crap.
Is what they say. Now, you'd have to gain access to refute that. It isn't enough to say, well, forces don't interact with forces. That's your position.
Right, so they don't have to prove their claims, okay? That's the bottom line. They can provide crap as evidence, and you're convinced, all right? And I have to prove them wrong. I have to prove the non-existence of their fake claims. So, yes, they claim it has the same blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you know what? It's probably the same as about 9,000 other things, okay? So it's probably like saying, yes, you have the same DNA as 99% of the rest of the American population. Whoa, yeah, it's identical, like everyone else's.
But to refute it, you have to scrutinize the papers which say it's the same light, and how that analysis has been done. I don't know, but...
Yeah, that's right. I have to disprove every one of their theories. They have to prove none of theirs. That's all he's saying. Their evidence can be shit. My evidence has to be complete. And again, on the face of it, you can just finish this conversation. They have crap for gravity. They have crap for magnetism. They have crap for... the whole subject of charge and electricity. they have crap. Nothing. Their theory has no integrity as a consistent model of something. And then they have the huge problem of the stupid bent space relativity shit, and then it's completely inconsistent with quantum mechanics. There's all the evidence you need to suggest that their theory is doubtfully correct, even without my considerable, concise and consistent theory working. Even without my working theory, theirs is still a non-working theory, and you still can't get it.
Similarly, a little bug in DraftScience's bonnet seems to be, and I hopefully know how to articulate this to properly engage with the point, because when I hear it, it's not in a technical sense. He has a problem with beam splitters, and that they're manufactured out of half silvered mirrors, and that they don't behave like...
that there's no theory. It's inconsistent with their own theory. They have made statements about what small apertures do, and now all of a sudden small apertures don't do that. That's a huge inconsistency in their theory. That's what I've pointed out. Go ahead and explain it to me. Explain the inconsistency, and I'll say, fine. Give me a rational explanation for how we don't worry about that in this circumstance. Why a circumstance changes what they have asserted to be fundamental quantum mechanical function. How come they can break their own frickin' laws? So amazing. So they can violate their own fundamental principles, and nobody should notice. Nobody should point it out.
The predictions of a mere multiplicative two-slit experiment, which is a good question, good thought. But to engage from his point of view, the way I see it, is to bring that to my attention or somebody else's attention, this quandary. I want to know what orthodox physics says about how they work then, because it seems They're
not going to tell you. They're going to tell you what Richard Feynman told you about how magnets work. You're too dumb to understand. But we know, kind of, mostly. That's what they're going to tell you. If the information was available, it'd be available. It's not available for a reason, because nobody is willing to make up the lie. Nobody's willing to commit to the story because they have no fucking clue how it works. They have no clue. They won't answer the question because if they try to answer it, they know they're going to have to commit to a theory, And they know the evidence already states that theory can't be true because they already have conflicting evidence. So they can't make the two things fit. So they're not going to ever commit to an explanation because they know whatever side they choose, it won't fit the other glove thing. It won't work.
Good question to ask in science class, you know, and say, well, you know, why does quantum mechanics predict light doing all this spreading and interfering with two slits, and yet the laser can go through this two split thing, and it doesn't do that. No.
Well, again, it's not two splits; it's just small apertures. So it's the Newton thing. Okay, so it's the 350-year-old fact that they're not explaining, and that they don't explain because it doesn't look anything like water waves.
Quantum mechanics will have an explanation for that. I don't think it will have slipped their attention. And
so they can have a completely made-up Invisible Man theories of stuff, and he makes up Invisible Man explanations for them. They don't even need to suggest the Invisible Man because he'll do it for them. He'll write the invisible paper on the invisible theory because it's got to exist because they are really good at making Invisible Man theories work. I mean, just amazing. And now he's writing the Invisible Man lie for them. Oh, I'm sure they have a perfectly good pile of shit. No, they don't.
You have to look to that explanation to bring out to better bring out the potential problem there.
No, there's no potential problem. There's an actual problem. Again, you won't find it anywhere. It can't even, like I said, as a technical detail, if I made these kind of mistakes, you'd be all over me. But as a technical detail, it can't even be 50-50 on the mirror, right? Can we agree on that? That the glass layer is going to reflect at least, at minimum, 4% of the light. At minimum. And it could be a lot more. At a 45-degree angle, we're talking about maybe 25% of the light's going to be reflected off the fucking first surface of the glass. And you're giving me an argument here? I mean, this is just such horseshit. I did it on my porch, okay? I'm just telling you. Take a plain piece of glass and shoot a laser at it at a 45-degree angle and see how much of the light reflects off the glass. Just the glass, with no mirrors yet. So it clearly can't be 50-50 silver, because you've already reflected at least 25% of the light.
Too often, the answer is that we have to bring you down. Like, I have to bring you, the expert. All you want to claim to do the work and claim.
No, that's nothing. No. I'm just asking for, they make extraordinary claims and they don't even have ordinary evidence. I've stated that over and over again, and you're claiming, no, that somehow their evidence is extraordinary. It's fantastically deep and thick evidence. It could never be called weak. Weak is an irrelevant word. You couldn't possibly use a word like that to describe the strength and power of their fucking made up bullshit. I mean, you're such a duplicitous fucking hypocrite. They prove nothing. I have to prove everything. That's your fucking standard as a judge, you lying sack of crap. You're clearly just a fucking lawyer you're an advocate for the Borg. They're the respected authorities. See, he has contempt for the respected authorities and their fucking crooked and manipulative perception, and yet he'll let these physicists do it. Oh, you're such a fucking hypocrite.
Physics. I have to bring you the paper, the video of the Stern girl. I have to bring you the paper.
Oh, what a pile of crap. I merely point out that I can't fucking analyze an experiment I can't see. For fuck's sake. I didn't ask you to bring me anything. I'm saying you want me to explain something that I get this ambiguous fucking drawing of it. A fake little putrid animation of little balls flying through something and going somewhere. And then you tell me I should fucking analyze it. I merely said to you, yeah, I can analyze the electrons being bent in the magnetic field because they show you the fucking experiment. So I can analyze it and explain it. And I did explain things. I explained how obviously the electrons aren't keeping going because then the light would get brighter. And I explained different things about it, you dumb cunt. But I can't explain an animation, fuckhead. I mean, what a rewriting of goddamn fucking history. I just said you're the one demanding that I explain Stern-Gerlach, that I explain how it's not fucking spin. A subject I couldn't give a shit about. You're the one telling me I have to. It's necessary. Okay, I explained magnetism, I explained electricity, I explained the right-hand rule, I explained Lenz's law, but fuck you, that doesn't mean anything. You have to explain Stern-Gerlach. You fucking cunt. You're the one nagging me for details over an experiment you can't even show me. And I already explained it. That's the preposterous irony. I've already gave you the fucking explanation. Lenz's law.
And the experiments of the light verification of magnification. I have to bring you the paper of what I've just spoken about. Slipped my mind now, but the point is that's too easy a rebuff, and there's a lot of rebuffing and dismissals. Like
what a pile of shit! Again, I'm the one who's explained gravity, explained magnetism, explained Lenz's law, explained the right-hand rule, explained the motor principle, explained all of this fucking shit. You fucking lying cunt! And then you're sitting there saying I'm evading something. God damn, you are so fucking dishonest. They've explained nothing. Your theory is God fucking did it, then you're clinging to it. You're so fucking owned by that lie.
Go on. That are problematic to get those brought up on an orthodox point of view to buy into your skepticism.
Again, this isn't about skepticism. This is just so fucking bullshit. It's about the a theory that works and a theory that doesn't. A theory that's material, has real moving parts, can be drawn, can be shown to you, can be illustrated, and a theory that says absolutely nothing besides the invisible man did it, the dark matter did it, the magical universe did it, the intraverse. I mean, this is just such a pile of shit. You're fucking so dishonest. You can't even describe this argument anywhere close to accurately. You fucking lying piece of shit.
Every element of skepticism, and even the two Schlitt experiment, which way? Only because I've done the work myself and found it difficult, and read the history and understand the degree to which ideas formulate as thought experiments, and then somebody tests the idea out, but not necessarily replicating the thought experiment. They found a way.
Again, we don't even have a theory of how the interferometer works. They'll commit to no explanation.
To test the feature of the thought experiment, but not necessarily replicate the thought experiment. That seems to be the narrative of the history of physics in regards of these difficult quantum experiments.
They're not difficult quantum experiments, by the way. Let's just call them what they are. They're light experiments, they're electron experiments, and they're atom experiments. Fundamentally different kinds of experiments using fundamentally different kinds of material objects. They're not the same fucking thing.
And so caution is warranted. But some of these things that are pillars which orthodox science stands upon, I don't think you can expect.
They're not pillars of anything. Again, they're pillars of what? There's redshift. That's a pillar. Okay. There's the inverse square law. Okay, so that's a pillar for bending space and time. There's no pillar of evidence here. Oh, this is just you're so dishonest.
To pull orthodox science down without clearly whistleblowing.
Yeah, without clearly pointing out how Eddington's experiment was flawed even as a theoretical experiment to do. It was even almost on the edge of impossible for human beings to be able to do something so precise. And that was with real photographic plates and a real telescope. And then there's people claiming they've done it now with, you know, digital telescopes and digital images. I mean, it's just such horseshit. This physics is such garbage. You have no standards for what evidence should look like.
On written evidence, yeah, and saying, look, this just doesn't happen. They never did it. I think you verged on being, in your arguments against the two-slit experiment. You didn't quite do the work, but
yeah, lie again. Just lie some more, you fucking cunt. You fucking liar. You won't come up with any evidence that I distorted the evidence at all, you fucking liar. Quote me, liar.
For something is the vigor with which you maintain that it's never been done, and it's a standing assertion. Yeah, but that only goes so.
No, yeah, okay. So why can't anybody show me the evidence of some asshole, some fucking idiot scientist? Because I'm basically saying no physicist would ever be dumb enough to think they could make a photon detector. That is a detector that could detect a photon passively. I'm going to shoot magitons at the photon and reflect the magitons off the photon to see the photon. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. No physicist would be dumb enough to even try to make a photon detector, retard.
So far, when you say, oh, gravitational waves not been detected, ain't been done. Light lensing ain't been done. I mean,
again, more just lies. I'm saying I point out exactly why there's a huge problem, okay? Einstein never said you can convert matter into a gravity wave. What I said is that there's no chance you could detect energy from that distance, okay? They made up a magical kind of energy that somehow doesn't disturb any of the matter around it. Do you even know their own theory? That's what it depends on, you retard? That's why they had to convert matter into gravity waves, is because the energy can't possibly get here. Do you understand that, shithead? They have to make more energy than could possibly be created by gravity. Gee, you're such a dumbass. So they created a fake new kind of radiation that they called gravity waves, but it's radiation. It's matter converted into radiant energy that they're pretending is like dark matter. It has all the properties of energy, except it's not energetic, except when it hits a mirror on Earth.
It's a latitude you might get for one experiment, yeah, where somebody goes another loop. But if that's always the thing, it leads to the idea that
I mean, it's just such a crock of shit. I brought up real empty, vacuous notions that are surrounding this. I pointed out how the interferometer has no theoretical mechanism, that they never tested its sensitivity, that there's no way they can know what all the sounds are that are made in the universe over the millennia. Okay, how they have 10 years worth of recorded sound. How are they going to know what the Grand Canyon sounds like when it's made, or the supervolcano, or I could make a million. How do they know the sounds that only happen once every 100 years, or every 1,000 years, or every 10,000 years? How could they possibly have a record of those sounds? Oh, that's right, they can't.
That it is kind of a conspiracy. The degree to which.
So again, you bring up rational points about how they haven't. This isn't strong evidence. It's incredibly fragile, weak, thin evidence, and he turns it into a conspiracy theory. I'm a conspiracy theorist because I point out how this is not a credible presentation of a proof. They never proved they did it. They merely said they did it. They didn't prove they did it. They didn't corroborate it with some other evidence. They didn't do any of that.
Science stands on anything firm is such a complete lie. To assert that without more rigor and holding up the sheet of paper that you say and showing your experiment that shows that it can't be done or such, is needed to convince orthodox scientists.
I mean, if you just think about what they're saying is happening, you know, I'm saying they're detecting a movement inside their mirror that is slight as the movement of electrons inside of an atom. I mean, it's like, how could you even see past the Browninging motion? They're claiming to see something so fine that we're back to this Browninging motion argument. The very thing that stops telescopes, I mean microscopes, optical microscopes can't work because the thing you're trying to look at is moving too much. That's why it doesn't stops working, because the thing you're looking at is moving too much. They have the same problem with this experiment. They are detecting a movement so tiny that Brownian motion in the mirror would wipe it out. Just logically you can understand that. Dumbass. That's not a conspiracy theory.
So my most recent video, DraftScience didn't see.
I mean, you're why science sucks. Because this is what you assholes do. Instead of forcing these guys to bring you real evidence, you're making excuses for them. You're making preposterous excuses for them. You're defending every lie they tell, every way they abuse the truth, every exaggeration. You will defend anything. They can molest any kid on this planet and you will defend them. You're why it's broken. You're the exact reason the world sucks, is because assholes like you will keep defending the suck. You will not demand any performance. You demand more from your fucking cricket pitcher than you demand from physicists. You demand nothing. Just make me up a story and tell it to me and I'm happy.
It's a lie. Well, I didn't make it for him, but it was just something that was on my mind. He called me seemingly like for entertaining the mysticism when I was arguing. The whole point of the video was to argue against the idea of extra dimensions.
Oh yeah, another one of your again. You apparently can't do anything right, because yes, you don't really argue against something by making a half-hour video explaining how Susskind you like him and you're when he talks the same woo. I mean, just give him 10 minutes on the subject of his stupid holographic information stifled event horizon nonsense, and it's as wooey as it gets.
I don't see why that was so problematic for DraftScience. I'll call it. It's about half of the video, so end stream. Are you sure? Yes, I will.
Alright, so sorry for the long video.
Again.
And I should just get, like I said, there's no one else to talk to, so I'm stuck with this crap. But I mean, yeah, let's just do the individual subjects, but let's stick to the bulk of physics. I mean, again, if I have to go examine every silly experiment that's ever been done, you know, what's the point? And again, on such and again, the experiment is done, and they just draw a ton of conclusions about what it does and what it represents, and then they give you a simulation that oversimplifies it in this insane manner, where all you got is little blobs going through something. Well, it goes down here, and this one goes up this way, and we say this was a Jimmy particle, and that was a Janie particle, and so that's why they went different ways, because Jimmys and Janies don't go the same way, because I mean, you know, oh yeah, I'm supposed to analyze their completely made up construction of what the experiment actually did. Shit. Hopeless. Hopeless task. The human beings are just fucking belligerently stupid. I mean, they're just stupid on purpose, deliberately. It's just, they seem to have no other ambition than, let's just see how fucking stupid I can be. That's all I'm seeing. You know, I mean, ain't it awful? Let's break it some more. Yeah. I mean, they complain about exactly what they do. The world they create. Fuck. Alright. So anyway, enough. It'd be funny if this freezes now. Freeze. The computer freezes.